Have you ever believed that there is no heaven or hell? Do you think that all religions are the same and that as long as you do good deeds, you will be saved? If you believe that, stop right now, because this story will send shivers down your spine. Today, you will hear a testimony from me, a lifelong Hindu. I believed in hundreds of gods, performed ancient rituals, but then I died. And what I saw in the afterlife changed me forever. But before you hear my story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel right now so you don't miss real-life testimonies from around the world. If you have your own story to share, send it to eternalbiblestories@gmail.com. Now, stay focused, because what you are about to hear may forever change the way you see life after death. My name is Santosh Acharji. I was born and raised in a strict Hindu family in India. My father wasn't just a devout Hindu, he was a renowned Sanskrit scholar, deeply respected for his knowledge, rituals, and unwavering devotion. Growing up, I was taught that there were hundreds of gods, and each one required prayers, rituals, and sacrifices to be pleased. Worship was a way of life, and honoring the gods was something we did without question. But despite everything, I chose a different path. I didn't follow in my father's footsteps. Instead, I pursued a career in engineering, which took me out of India to work in different countries. My life became all about logic, technology, and science. I had no time for gods, prayers, or anything spiritual. I believed in what I could see, touch, and prove. To me, religion was just a tradition. Something I respected, but not something I truly connected with. I was too busy building my career, traveling, and living a life far removed from the spiritual world my family held dear. And then, one night, changed everything. It started as a sharp pain in my abdomen, like something had exploded inside me. At first, I thought it would pass, but within minutes, it became unbearable. A burning, crushing agony that spread to my chest. Sweat poured down my face, my breathing became shallow, my vision blurred. Something was seriously wrong. My family panicked. They rushed to my side, trying to help, but I could barely move. My heart was racing. My body felt like it was shutting down. They called an ambulance, and in what felt like seconds, I was being rushed through the city, sirens wailing in the background. At the hospital, doctors quickly assessed me. The first thing they suspected was a heart attack. It made sense. But after running several tests, they discovered the truth. And the truth was far worse than a heart attack. My gallbladder had ruptured, and in the process, it had torn through my pancreas, causing massive internal bleeding. I was bleeding out from the inside, and my body was going into shock. My heart rate skyrocketed to 204 beats per minute, an insane, life-threatening number. The doctors worked quickly, but there was nothing they could do to stop the damage. Then I heard something that sent chills down my spine. One of the doctors turned to his colleague and said, "We can't do anything else. All we can do now is pray." Pray? That word hit me like a wave. I had spent years ignoring religion, ignoring God, ignoring all the prayers and rituals my father had once believed in. And now, at this moment, the moment of life or death, the only option left was prayer. But who was I supposed to pray to? I had worshipped many gods in my lifetime, but right now, in this hospital bed, none of them were here. None of them were answering. None of them were reaching out to me. And then, I died. I had always believed that after death there would be nothing. No heaven, no hell, no afterlife, just emptiness. I thought life was like a candle. Once it burned out, that was it. Nothing remained. My family had always taught me about karma, reincarnation, and the cycle of life and death. But deep down, I wasn't sure if I believed any of it. Even though I had grown up in a devout Hindu household, worshipping hundreds of gods, reciting prayers and following rituals, none of it ever felt real to me. I saw religion as a cultural tradition, something we did because it was expected, not necessarily because it was true. As I got older, I focused more on science and technology. I believed in logic, evidence, and reason. If something couldn't be measured, tested, or observed, I dismissed it. The idea of an afterlife seemed like wishful thinking, just something people told themselves to avoid the fear of death. And so I lived my life as if this world was all there was. I built my career, traveled to different countries, and pursued success, never once stopping to think about what might come after. It simply didn't matter to me, until one day it did. Because when I died, I was still there. The first thing I felt was confusion. I had expected my consciousness to fade away, to disappear into oblivion, but instead I was fully aware. My mind was sharp, my thoughts were intact, and I remembered everything. But something was wrong. I had no body. I couldn't feel my arms, my legs, or my face. I tried to move, but I had no form to move with, and yet I was still me. My thoughts, my memories, my very existence, it was all still there. Then the panic set in. What is happening? Where am I? I tried to make sense of my surroundings, but there was nothing. No sky, no ground, no walls, just an endless, empty void. I was floating in darkness, alone, weightless, and completely powerless. And that's when the realization hit me like a crushing wave. I had lost everything. My life, my family, my future, all of it was gone in an instant. I had spent my entire existence working, planning, and striving for success, only to have it all ripped away. And now I had no idea what was happening to me. Was this the afterlife? Was this some kind of in-between state? Or was I truly alone, lost in an abyss for eternity? A deep, paralyzing fear overtook me. If this was what death was, an endless, meaningless void, then I had made a terrible mistake in ignoring what lay beyond life. And then it happened. A blinding light appeared. At first, it was just a small flicker in the distance, but then it grew, expanding until it was all I could see. This was no ordinary light. It wasn't like the sun or a flashlight. This light was alive. It radiated power and authority, and the moment it appeared, I knew that it had complete control over me. I wasn't in charge anymore. I wasn't the one making decisions. This light was greater than me, greater than anything I had ever known. Then something even more incredible happened. The light didn't just shine from a distance, it surrounded me. It wrapped around me like a glowing presence, consuming me in its warmth. And the moment it touched me, we began to move. I wasn't walking, I wasn't flying, I wasn't in control at all. I was simply being taken. At first, I was overwhelmed with fear. I had no idea where we were going or what was happening to me. The thought of being completely at the mercy of something so powerful was terrifying. My entire life I had been in control. I had made my own choices, shaped my own future. But now, I was powerless. And yet, something unexpected happened. I started to feel safe. I don't know how to explain it, but as we traveled, I felt something I had never experienced before. Pure, unconditional love. This light wasn't here to harm me. It wasn't here to punish me. Instead, it felt like it was protecting me, like it was shielding me from something I couldn't see. It was the most overwhelming love I had ever known. It was deeper than the love of a parent, a spouse, or a friend. It was a love that saw everything about me, every mistake, every failure, every moment of doubt, and still embraced me completely. And that confused me. My entire life, I had worshipped gods through rituals, offerings, and traditions, but I had never felt this kind of love. I had always believed that blessings had to be earned, that the gods only rewarded those who performed the right ceremonies, but this love was freely given. I didn't have to ask for it. I didn't have to deserve it. It was simply there, wrapping around me, filling me with warmth, making me feel fully known and yet fully accepted. I have no idea how long we traveled. Time didn't feel real anymore. There was no sense of minutes or hours, just motion. We kept moving, and I had no choice but to follow. I didn't know where we were going, but somehow I trusted the light. And then we stopped. The light released me, and suddenly I was no longer floating. I was standing, or at least existing, somewhere entirely new. I looked ahead, and what I saw left me in absolute shock. In front of me was the most magnificent place I had ever seen, the kingdom of God. It was beyond anything I could ever describe, more glorious than any temple, palace, or natural wonder on earth. It wasn't just beautiful, it radiated divine perfection. Everything about it was alive, as if the very air carried the presence of something eternal, something greater than anything I had ever known. Towering walls of immeasurable height surrounded the kingdom, stretching beyond what my eyes could comprehend. They weren't just walls, they were structures of pure radiance, glowing with a light that didn't cast shadows, but instead seemed to emanate from the very presence of God Himself. Set within these walls were 12 massive gates, each one burning with unearthly brilliance, shimmering as if made of living gold and jewels, radiating holiness and power. Though I had never seen them before, something deep inside me recognized them. This was no ordinary place. This was eternity's home. This was the very throne room of God. A powerful longing overtook me. I needed to go inside. More than anything, I wanted to enter. I didn't just want to, I had to. I knew that inside those walls was everything my soul had been searching for, even though I had never known I was searching. Inside was life, peace, joy, eternity, all of it waiting just beyond those gates. I had never felt a desire so strong before. This was where I was meant to be. This was home. But as I stepped forward, something was wrong. The gates did not open. I moved closer, hoping they would swing open as I approached, that someone would come to welcome me inside, but they didn't move. No matter how much I longed for it, not a single gate opened for me. I stood there, staring in confusion, waiting for something, anything, to happen, but nothing did. I was locked out. Then a terrible realization hit me. I was not allowed in. A sickening feeling crept over me. No, this can't be happening. Why? Why wasn't I being let in? I had come so far, I had seen the gates with my own eyes. Why was I being denied entry? My heart pounded as I tried to understand. It didn't make sense. I had always thought that as long as I was a good person, as long as I lived an honorable life, everything would be fine. But now, standing here, staring at the gates that would not open, I realized something terrifying. I was not worthy to enter. A wave of fear rolled over me, and as I turned to look around, my fear turned to horror. Until now, I had been so focused on the beauty of heaven that I hadn't even looked at where I was standing, and the moment I did, a paralyzing terror overtook me. I was standing on a massive platform, stretching thousands of feet long and hundreds of feet wide. But to my left, there was no ground, no floor, no foundation. There was nothing. I was standing at the very edge of an endless abyss, an immeasurable chasm stretching downward into infinite darkness. And far below, at the very bottom of that abyss, I saw something that made my entire soul shake with terror. A sea of fire. It wasn't like any fire I had ever seen before. It wasn't flickering. It wasn't like flames on earth. This fire was alive. It consumed everything, roaring with a fury that no words could describe. It churned and moved like a living creature, and I could hear something even worse, screams. I didn't just see the fire, I heard it. The agonizing cries of countless souls, voices filled with torment, regret, and suffering. It wasn't just sound, it was pain itself, echoing from deep within that place. I could feel the horror of those trapped in it, the absolute despair that had no end. This was not just destruction, this was eternal punishment. I knew where I was. I knew what this place was. This was hell. I had never believed in hell before. I had dismissed it as religious fear-mongering, as an outdated myth meant to scare people into obedience. But now, I wasn't hearing about it in a book. I wasn't imagining it in a story. I was standing at its edge, staring directly into its depths. And the most terrifying realization of all hit me like a hammer. If I fell, I would not just land in that fire, I would be consumed by it, and I would never get out. I stumbled backward, panic overwhelming me. My entire being screamed, "No! This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. I couldn't go there." But the truth was right in front of me. I couldn't deny it. I couldn't pretend it didn't exist. It was real, and it was right beneath me. I was standing between two eternal destinies, one of unimaginable beauty and joy, and the other of unthinkable suffering and torment. And I belonged to neither. I couldn't enter heaven, but I also hadn't fallen into hell, yet. I was stuck, caught in a horrifying in-between. My mind raced. What is happening? Why am I here? Is this my fate? Am I doomed to stand here forever, unable to enter heaven but too afraid to fall? I turned back to the gates, my heart desperate. Please, please let me in. But no matter how much I longed for it, no matter how much I cried out in silence, the gates remained closed. I had no place in the kingdom. And yet, if I wasn't allowed in, then where did I belong? I turned back to the abyss, my heart pounding so hard that I thought it would shatter. I couldn't accept this. I couldn't be here, not like this. I couldn't fall, but I couldn't go forward either. I didn't belong in heaven, but I knew if I made one wrong move, I would plummet into hell. At that moment, as I stood frozen in fear, trapped between heaven and hell, something even more terrifying and powerful appeared before me. A throne. But not just any throne. It was massive, radiant, and beyond human comprehension, stretching high above me as if it had no end. It was not made of gold, silver, or any earthly material. It was pure light, burning with an intensity that made everything else pale in comparison. It radiated authority, power, and absolute holiness, a presence so overwhelming that I felt like a speck of dust before an unshakable mountain. And seated upon that throne was Him. I had spent my entire life worshipping gods made of stone, wood, and metal, following traditions that had been passed down for generations, believing in rituals, sacrifices, and prayers to deities I had never truly seen. But now, before me, was a being so powerful, so utterly beyond anything I had ever imagined, that I instantly knew, without anyone telling me, that this was God. Not one of many gods, not an idea, not a distant energy or a mythical figure from religious stories. This was the one true God, the creator of everything, the supreme ruler over heaven and earth. I had never seen Him before, yet somehow my soul recognized Him instantly. He was pure light, an immense and terrifying presence, yet at the same time there was a depth to Him that I could not fully grasp. He was not just a being of power. He was the very essence of holiness, righteousness, and judgment. He was a mighty giant, towering in unimaginable majesty, and His eyes burned like fire. Those eyes, I could not escape them. They were not like human eyes. They were all-seeing, all-knowing, consuming, and penetrating. They were filled with justice, truth, and absolute authority. When He looked at me, He did not just see me standing there. He saw everything. And in that instant, I saw it too. All at once, every sin I had ever committed, every selfish thought, every lie, every hidden wrong I had tried to forget, it all flashed before my eyes. I had no control over it. It was as if a divine mirror had been placed before my soul, and for the first time in my existence, I saw the truth about myself. I saw every act of pride, every moment of greed, every time I had ignored someone in need. I saw the times I had chosen myself over others, the times I had lived for my own desires, my own ambitions, my own will. I saw the ways I had worshipped false gods, trusted in empty traditions, and built my life around things that had no eternal value. And I was horrified. I thought I had been a good person. I had lived what I considered a decent life. I had worked hard, I had provided for my family, I had even been kind at times. But standing before him, none of that mattered. I could not hide behind my achievements, my intelligence, my good deeds. The weight of my sins was overwhelming, pressing down on me with an intensity I had never known. I had spent my entire life thinking I was in control, that I could shape my own destiny, that I was a master of my own fate. But now, I realized I had been blind. I fell to the ground, unable to stand beneath his gaze. My entire being shook uncontrollably, as if the very fabric of my soul was unraveling. The presence of God was so holy, so perfect, so completely pure, that I felt like a filthy, unworthy, broken thing in front of him. I could not lift my head. I could not make excuses. I could not even speak at first. I was drowning in the weight of who I truly was. And then I did the only thing I could. I wept. I wept like I had never wept before, not just out of fear, but out of deep, gut-wrenching sorrow. I knew I deserved nothing. I knew I had no right to stand before him. I knew that if he chose to cast me away forever, if he sent me plunging into the abyss, it would be completely just and fair. There was no arguing. There was no defense. All I could do was plead for mercy. I began crying out with everything inside me. Lord, please forgive me. I didn't know. I didn't understand. Have mercy on me. I was blind. I was foolish. I should have sought you. I should have known you, but I wasted my life. Please, God, please don't cast me away. I didn't even dare to look up. My face was pressed against the ground, my whole being trembling in fear and desperation. Through my sobs, I looked back toward the gates of heaven, still closed before me. The narrow gate, the only entrance into eternal life, remained shut. I had always thought that being religious, doing good deeds, and believing in some God, any God, would be enough. But now I understood how wrong I had been. It was not about how much I had prayed, how many rituals I had performed, or how many good works I had done. None of those things could open the gate for me. I kept pleading, begging, Lord, please, show me the way. Tell me what I must do to enter. I don't want to be separated from you. I don't want to fall into the fire. Please. Then he spoke. His voice was like a mighty thunder, yet filled with authority and absolute certainty. It wasn't a voice of anger, nor was it soft. It was final, undeniable, and commanding. The moment he spoke, the sound shook the very depths of my soul. Return to the earth and complete your unfinished work. I was stunned. I had expected judgment. I had expected condemnation. I had expected to be cast away forever. But instead, I was being given a second chance. A chance I did not deserve. A chance to go back. A chance to change everything. A chance to truly know who he was. I barely had time to process what was happening. One moment, I was kneeling before the Almighty, drowning in shame and grief. The next moment, everything vanished. The throne, the gates, the abyss, the fire, all of it faded, and suddenly, I woke up. I woke up in a hospital bed 3 days later. The first thing I remember was the sound of monitors beeping, the sterile smell of antiseptics, and the voices of doctors and nurses moving around me. My body felt weak but alive, and as my eyes slowly adjusted to the light, I could see the astonishment on the faces of the medical staff surrounding me. I had survived. But it was more than just survival. I later learned that the doctors had given up on me. My condition had been beyond saving, and medically speaking, I should not have lived. My organs had been failing, my heart had been racing at an impossible speed. There was no cure, no treatment that could have saved me. And yet, here I was, not just alive, but completely healed. Within 2 weeks, I walked out of that hospital, restored to full health, without any medication or long-term complications. It was a miracle, but even more than that, I was not the same person who had gone into that hospital. Something inside me had changed forever. I had seen what lay beyond death. I had stood at the gates of heaven and faced the terrifying reality of being separated from God. I had stood before his throne, trembling, unworthy and utterly helpless, and I had been given a second chance, not because I deserved it, but because of his mercy. I had spent years searching for answers in religion, in rituals, in philosophies, in traditions, but now I knew the truth. The one I had met on the throne, the Almighty Lord, the King of Kings, the one whose eyes burned like fire, was not just some distant, unknowable deity. He was Jesus. The same Jesus I had once ignored, the Jesus I had dismissed as just another religious figure, the Jesus I had never sought to know. He was the one on the throne. He was not just another God among many. He was the only one. I had grown up believing that reaching God required endless rituals, prayers, offerings, and traditions. I thought that religion was about pleasing the gods through actions and sacrifices. But now, I understood that Jesus did not want rituals. He wanted a relationship. He did not ask me for complicated prayers, repetitive chants, or elaborate ceremonies. He did not demand that I follow strict religious codes or traditions. What he wanted was me, my heart, my trust, my surrender. I had spent my whole life trying to earn God's favor through human effort, but the truth was, he had already made the way for me. The narrow gate, the very one that had been closed to me, was not something I could open by my own deeds. Jesus himself was the gate. And now, I had been sent back with a mission. Before sending me back to earth, the Lord had given me 5 instructions, 5 commands that I must follow and that I must share with others. These were not just for me, they were for everyone. And today I am sharing them with you. Always tell the truth. Do not be afraid to speak the truth, even when it is difficult, even when it costs you something. The world may reject the truth, but the truth is what sets people free. Do not lie, do not deceive, and most importantly, share the truth of what you have seen and experienced. Commit no more sins. Sin leads to spiritual death, and the wages of sin is eternal separation from God. You cannot live for both the world and for God. Make the choice to turn away from sin completely, to seek righteousness, and to live according to God's ways. Surrender completely to Jesus. Stop trying to control your own life. Stop thinking you can save yourself. Let Jesus be the driver of your life. Give him everything, your heart, your decisions, your future. True peace and salvation come only when we fully surrender to him. Walk with God. This does not mean simply believing in him from a distance. It means following him, walking in his ways, his truth, his commands. It means living a life that reflects his love, his mercy, and his righteousness. To walk with Jesus is to go where he leads, not where you want to go. Be kind and generous to the poor. This does not only mean giving money. There are many kinds of poverty: spiritual poverty, emotional poverty, physical poverty. People around us are suffering in ways we cannot always see. Be the hands and feet of Jesus. Show compassion. Help those in need. Love those who have no one to love them. These 5 instructions are not just words. They are the keys to eternal life. They are the path to walking through the narrow gate. When I was before the throne, I begged Jesus to tell me which religion was the right one, which church, which temple, which practices I should follow. But his answer shocked me. He said, "Those things are not important to me. What matters is your relationship with me." Jesus is not looking for religion. He is looking for you. I was sent back to earth for a reason, to share this truth with everyone who will listen, because one day every single person will stand before God's throne. Every knee will bow. Every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. But for many, it will be too late. The gate will be closed, just as it was for me. You do not have to wait until death to seek Jesus. You do not have to stand on the edge of hell to realize that you need him. The time to choose him is now. I am not the same person I was before. My life now belongs to Jesus Christ, and I will spend the rest of my days telling the world what he has shown me. If you are reading this, know that this message is not just for me. It is for you. There is a narrow gate that leads to eternal life, but there is only one way to enter. That way is Jesus. Are you ready to meet him? Or will you continue living as if heaven and hell do not exist? Think carefully. One day you will stand before him. One day your time on this earth will come to an end. And when that moment comes, there will be no turning back. You don't know when your last day will be. None of us do. Death does not wait for anyone. It comes suddenly, without warning, without mercy. And when it does, your eternity will be decided. Will you be welcomed into the kingdom of heaven, or will you find yourself standing before the closed gates with nothing but the abyss of fire below? Do not wait until it's too late. The time to choose is now. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to continue sharing these powerful stories and creating a space for open, heartfelt conversations. Click the notification bell so you're always updated when we post new content. Together, let's explore the unseen, celebrate the miraculous, and inspire one another to live with love, faith, and wonder.